Hello, I'm Julia Cordova. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it. So this week is what I call a planned volatility event week because the Fed is coming out with the interest rate decision on Wednesday. And even though we all know that's going to happen, we all know probably the outcome of that. Still, a lot of people are very nervous for it, and a lot of positioning happens prior to the meeting. So what the best case scenario is from a trading perspective is that we reach some sort of extreme early in the week, and then we can sort of fade that move into the actual decision when we come to a balance of sorts. And then after the decision comes out, we can make another decision, our decision, about how we're going to trade from there. So hopefully we get some volatility, but we'll talk about each level on the charts, and I'll also talk about the monthly charts because this weekend happened to be over a month change, and wow, April was a doozy of a month. Hardly a bounce at all for indices. So I've got monthly charts for ES, NQ, GDX, and gold that we'll cover today. So that's it. You ready? Let's talk charts. Whoop. All right. Oh, and I should say that for people who do the newsletter, we also talk about our macro overview as well. So I'll just talk the technicals for now, but at the bottom of the article, we talk about why we were bearish at the end of March, and now we're going to talk about what we are today. Okay, so this is the monthly chart for ES. You can see here we're basically still in a giant upward channel as of now. And this isn't the middle. I didn't do one of those fork thingies. It just happened to be sort of coincide with this. But at any rate, you can see that during February and March, we came back tested the bottom of this support line here. But then in April, went back again. And as you know, triple bottom, not a bottom. So we pretty much closed at the lows for the month. And then in addition to that, we are just sitting ever so slightly below the 20 MA. So not a great price action here. However, the most interesting thing about this is that the sort of key pivot for the monthly is 4185, which is very, very similar to my buy or die level on the ES weekly. So let me go there. Okay, so, oh boy, we didn't quite get to the one of my levels here that I was watching last week, but for this week, it moves on. It is 4099.75. That is where we have some initial support. And my hope, just because of the price action on Friday, my hope is that we can reach this level on Monday, because I do believe that we've got high probability odds for a bounce there should we get to this area, and potentially then even possibly a squeeze into the decision. So that would be, I think, the best case scenario is if we sort of hit this early and then we can play it upwards from there. But we'll see what happens. Now, as far as 4183 goes, it's still the huge pivot to watch. It's not necessarily bullish above, but it's more bullish above. Let's say that. So, and above there, we've got 4265, and then this 4300 is major resistance as well, and then the top of the bull flag channel 4339. So now below this area, I'm going to look to my hourly charts, but the next resistance I have sort of that is a bigly, so to speak, is 3925.75. Okay, so now let's look at the hourly. So you can see this, the method I use of channels works quite well. I took the same slope, applied it to the last low, and what do you know? We exactly hit it on Friday, end of day. So we had a little bit of a bounce there in the after hours, but not too much of one. So from this chart, I have support at both 4118.0 and 4120.5 or so. So that range in the hourly should provide some support. We are a bit sold off, but you can remember when I was talking about the fact that RSI was so low here, and so everybody was thinking, oh, huge bounce, right? Well, they managed to take RSI up by just chopping price around for quite some time before there was any bounce. So things like that can happen to get us out of this zone, and that's what I mean. So potentially, hopefully, we'll get down to that 4100 area on the weekly and be able to take that bounce. Okay, let's look at Nasdaq. So I'm going to go back here and look at the Nasdaq monthly. All right, so same deal here. We were in a big old channel, but for Nasdaq, remember we went way past where we were before COVID. It's just it accelerated much faster than ES did, so it broke out of that channel, came back tested it, not perfectly. That's okay. But again, same deal here with April, just getting us below that support. Now, the good news is that there is some channel support. See this, it's a steeper channel. So there is some channel support pretty close to here. I mean, relatively speaking, at 12578.75. But the key pivot is in the next resistance level up is 13406. So that's what we're working with on a monthly perspective. And then from a weekly perspective, I've got some support just under here at 12716.75. And below that, quite a bit of space. So we'll be looking at the Nasdaq hourly chart as well below that, although that 12,500 area from the monthly is in here. And then we've got 13131.50 as the next resistance. And then really sort of the, and that's kind of the buy or die level for the Nasdaq. But then we've got this range here of 13,417 to 13,442. That's going to provide some major resistance if we can break above this level. And then 13,568. And you can see here, though, that we do have right now, at least, see how price is lower and then RSI is just a tish higher. It's, I mean, just a little bit, just a touch. Now, that can correct itself in one of two ways. Either price can bounce at the end, have a higher close, or it can continue to go lower and this divergence will actually be taken away. So not real helpful there, but it's just something to note so that we know it's a possibility. All right, let's look at small caps. Oh, so remember we had talked about this bear flag here and then this bear flag. Well, it stretched and stretched and stretched. And then we broke down from it. And then last week was almost a perfect back test of that channel. So from here, I actually drew in another line because it was just dead space. So I had to search for something, but I found it. I did. So below where we closed last week, 1844.8 is a potential support. And then the next resistance up is 1892.4. But this area here of 1715 is really the next major support that I have. And we are just below this RSI support as of last week. So not looking too great there. This is just a very bearish looking chart at this time. Oh boy. So let's look at Bitcoin. All right. So I also added another line for Bitcoin. I added this orange slope that I've been using on the occasion because I think it'll be helpful to us because we're so close to this ambulance line. Are we going to hit it? Are we not? Oh, well, if we can get back above 38724.8, then we have a much less likely shot at it, right? And, you know, these orange lines aren't perfect, but they're pretty good. So that's sort of the area I'm looking at. If it can get above 38724, then I'm telling you there's a shot. Otherwise, this ambulance line at 3567.7. All right. 35676.7. All right. Let's look at Ethereum. All right. So Ethereum, same deal here. It's just chopping, but it's chopping in a downwards direction. So for now, it's just between the pivots. below this 2623.51, it's going to look quite bearish. And if it can get above the key at 2960.78, it'll look much better. All right, now let's look at Doge, because I like Doge. Anyway, so Doge is actually chopping, but actually not chopping down so much as the others. But for now, we're up against this RSI resistance. It's about, and we're at about 13,226 or so. So I moved the Doge dog down, because every time I put something like that up, I notice price goes down. So I moved it down, hoping the price would go up. But anyway, it's just chopping. Potentially, if it can get back above this key here at 1586, then in fact, that's a double resistance. So that would be, I think, super bullish if that can happen. And I will potentially add to my position there if it can happen, if it does happen. All right, let's look at GDX. So I'm going to go back to the monthly chart and show you GDX on the monthly. Okay, so let me just make this so we can really get the big picture here. All right, so you can see here that GDX has performed pretty well, especially relative to the market over the last few months. But last month it performed with the market and then it went down. So for this month, if it were to back test this breakout, that would be about 33.54. That aligns with my weekly level. And then the top of the channel is 44.12. And you can see here that it's been higher in the past, right? So we'll see if potentially, if we can break out of this channel at some point, we can make new highs. But at any rate, for this week, that's what I'm watching. All right, now let's look at the weekly chart. Okay, so the key here is 33.27. It's technically still bearish on the weekly chart just because we got a perfect bounce off of the 20. I mean, it's so perfect. It's a little suspect. But at any rate, if it does happen to, if price does happen to fall this week, we've got this 50 MA that we can watch beforehand, which is about, depending on where price is, about 33.70 or so. So that whole area in here, I think, is a really good risk reward to buy if you believe in the potential of the metals and miners longer term. So if you believe that, this is a good area to buy, in my opinion, if it gets down here. All right, so let's look at gold. And here I go again to the gold monthly chart. Okay, so you can see here that we've gotten to a nice high here. We back tested that just a month or so ago. Seems like longer, but anyway, so for this week, we've got basically 1854.1 is a back test of the channel, just like miners that didn't quite get there last month. And then the key here is 1923.7, which pretty much aligns with that 1926 we've been looking at on the weekly. And then the top of the channel to get there is about 2084 or so. So 18.54 is the area to hold and buy if it gets there on the monthly, in my opinion. Okay, so let's look at the weekly. And again, you can see this unfilled gap at 1842.1 to 1845.4. That aligns with my channel, which also aligns with this 50 MA. So it's a super duper important area. It's got a lot of lines here. So it's a really nice sort of meshing of places to buy. So if it gets down here, I think it's a really good risk reward. At least I'm going to take it there, add to my current position. So last week we came back and filled this gap. I put this dot here because even though price looks like it stopped there for the week, there's some shenanigans that always happen after hours with all of the futures. And this was just, I just wanted you to make aware of it. People in the last hour or so of trading, a couple hours, took it back here to this this level here. So, but for now, it looked like it was very constructive for the week, but we'll have to see. So now if it can get above this 1917.6, I think that's very good, right? Because that's the area that the bots, that the algos have been defending. But 1926.1, again, is key area. And above that, 2008. All right, let's look at silver. Okay, so silver's not quite looking as constructive as gold. Well, it's a lot more twitchy. It's the natural, it's like how natural gas is to oil, right? It's crazy. But at any rate, we've got one tiny unfilled gap here at 22.475 to 22.5. So that's the area I'm watching there. Below that, 21.67 is really a last chance, but I don't necessarily want it to go. Of course, I don't want it to go down all the way down there, but that is the last chance. Right now, we're sitting on RSI support as of the close. And so the key that I'm watching where I think it'll, and you can see it's below all of these MAs, but I think if it can get back above 23.755 this week, then potentially it can go much higher. So that's sort of the area to watch, the sort of key pivot, if you will. Now let's look at oil. Okay, so oil has just, even though it left this pennant that I drew and I was so proud of, it's really still consolidating, triangulating, so to speak. And so for this week, above 101.63 is bullish. And then it's got some resistance here at 106.52. It's got some support at 98.79. And then it's got a partial unfilled gap here. It's got an unfilled gap here. And it's really just about where it's going to go first. And I really don't know. So the good news is, though, because it's been consolidating for so long, whatever the next move is going to be a big move. So we can all take advantage of it. We don't necessarily have to guess. So we can wait for confirmation. And confirmation, I think, would be a close above one of these gap areas or below one of these gap areas. That, to me, would be sort of, well, a strong indicator, at least, right, of which way it's going to go. So that would be what I'm looking for. Now, as far as XOP goes, oh, gosh, so we came back and finally filled this gap last week, but we didn't backtest my channel. I was super hoping it would, because that would be a much easier, I was kind of waiting around for it, although we all know that there's some support here. But anyway, if it comes back to test the channel this week, I've got support at 123.59. Below that, and it's not going to look so good. However, I've got resistance at 138.47. So if it can get back above that, then yay. So that'll start to look much more positive. So we just don't know right now what's going to happen there. And let's look at Natty. Okay, so Natty, I added in this line last week, and it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty well behaved, because when it got there, it faded, came back below this 7.191 level, and then came back up again and pretty much closed right on it. So below the 7.191 area, and potentially it can get to 6.029 above, and I've got resistance at 7.469. And on the daily, it's sort of forming a pennant, if you will, as well. So the areas that I'm watching are 7.292 and 6.568. All right, that's it. So I make myself big. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking my videos. I really appreciate it, and I will see you on the interwebs. Okay, bye.